Welcome to the meeting of the Backbench Business Committee. The chairman of the Backbench Business Committee, the member for Gateshead, Ian Mearns, unfortunately is not able to be with us today. He's got, very sadly, his daughter-in-law is extremely ill, and he's obviously at home with the family at this difficult time. And I'm sure the committee wishes to place on record our hope that his daughter-in-law will make a speedy recovery and that he'll be back with us as soon as possible. Yeah. In his absence, the committee has asked me to chair the meeting once again. So we're going to start with the first application from Matt Warman on Pylons and National Grid's Great Grid Upgrade. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd obviously endorse what you've just said about the member for Gateshead and hope he is back soon. The National Grid, as you know, is in the midst of an enormous and necessary upgrade, but fundamentally the reason why I'm here today is because that upgrade has a profound effect on a large number of constituencies. In the interests of the committee's request that there be a range of parties on these applications, I should address that head on by saying it is simply a geographical fact that they go through primarily Conservative constituencies, which is why there is that imbalance. But I have made particular efforts to talk to Scottish MPs, for instance, and there are some other issues around the geography where there will be widespread interest, but I should be honest and say it will be cross-party, but it will primarily be from Conservatives. I think it's important to be straight about that. But this is an issue that will impact those large numbers of constituencies, and part of it is around building large numbers of new pylons. There are 13 projects that National Grid is pursuing around the country. I've obviously got a constituency interest in Lincolnshire. Large numbers of people in Essex, Suffolk and Norfolk have already made representations on various versions of this issue. It also touches on the much broader interest around net zero and why we are upgrading the grid. Part of it is around connecting offshore wind farms. Part of it is around connecting the changing way that the grid will be used, for instance, to power electric vehicles, and it's not set up to do that currently. But as I say, my main reason for coming here is that I think the ambitions that the Backbench Committee has to make sure that backbench voices are heard, this is an issue that affects so many of those backbench colleagues and indeed some frontbenchers as well. I hope the committee would see it's only fair to give us a voice to challenge both the government's current approach and indeed to highlight the approach that's being taken by National Grid as an arm's length body.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt. Two things very briefly. You've obviously ticked only the chamber for this particular application. We as a committee have a standard policy that we'd expect to see 15 speakers for such a debate, and you've only got 11, of which 10 aren't Conservative. If we were minded to offer you a Westminster Hall debate on this subject, which could be on Thursday the 2nd of May, would you accept it?
So, of course, beggars can't be choosers, and it would be, and anything is better than nothing. The only thing I suppose I would say is I stopped at 11 because I wanted to get the application in before recess, rather than because there are only 11 people who are interested. And I do think the range means that it merits a full chamber outing, but I accept the committee's desire to fill up Westminster Hall as well.
Thank you, Chair. First, the Chairman's already covered one of the points, because looking at the debate that's just this House has considered would usually be more Westminster Hall. So, presumably, is that the intention to have a considered? You're not thinking of anything substantive?
I have discussed with a couple of other sponsors the prospect of having a debatable motion. It would be around the transparency of National Grid's decision-making and around their ability to accurately forecast the various different options. So there is certainly amongst some of the sponsors already, there is a real appetite for that sort of thing. I don't want to promise that every single person who has already signed up to it would definitely sign up to something that is fundamentally slightly different from what they have signed up to, but I don't think it would be a hard sell to them.
So that's obviously divided for us between the Chamber and Westminster Hall as well. It's substantive to have to be in the Chamber. And the second point on the political balance, this is a committee that fundamentally does very much base itself firmly on the idea of requests being politically balanced. And to be honest, whilst I appreciate the point that some constituencies around places like Hinkley Point C, for example, that are getting new pylons are mostly Conservative, I do think I would want to see some more opposition signatures to this before I would be minded to grant it, because there are constituencies. In fact, I can think we have had debates which tend towards being more likely to be one party than another. So, for example, debates around certain former industries and stuff are more likely to be, or farming debates are more likely to be Conservative speakers than others. But I would still want to see at least a level of opposition support, particularly from the major opposition party.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely take that point. I think it is an unfortunate fact that there is nothing less controversial to an MP than a pylon in someone else's constituency. So the challenge around getting those signatures is a real one. But I do, of course, take the point. I would say if I sought to broaden it out into and emphasise some of the net zero aspects, then of course it's widespread, but I do think focusing on the issue that is of such great concern to a large number of people is the right thing to do, and maybe I'm tying my hands and therefore to some extent tying your ability to satisfy my desires.
I think perhaps I'd gently suggest looking at issues around, for example, how people connect into the grid. I appreciate if we widen it out to things like net zero, it would actually change the nature of the debate. I appreciate, but I think I would say there would be a need to at least get some support particularly from the SNP or the Labour Party.
Well, I mean, there are SNP, there are Lib Dem signatories there and Plaid Cymru signatories there. I appreciate they are not doing what you're after. It is called the Great Grid Upgrade on the application for the reasons that you described, rather than simply pylons.
Yes.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you, Matt. And obviously the clerks will be in touch with you subsequently. Thank you. Right, next is Dame Andrea Jenkins. Andrea, if you could step forward.
Thank you, Chairman.
And your request is for a debate on the true costs of illegal immigration.
Absolutely.
Over to you.
I'm at that age now I need my glasses on, so if you bear with me. Thank you. Well, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Committee. So I'm speaking, asking for support for my application on this debate. I feel it's a matter that the whole public cares about deeply. Illegal migration, it affects every constituency, whatever party. And I'd really like a debate on the true cost of illegal migration, the effects on the communities. We're talking about GP appointments, dentist appointments, we're talking about housing, we're talking about also school places. So there's also the local government aspect of this as well. Now, I've got, there's one signatory, there's another DUP one that I believe got missed off, who came on late with this, so we have got those extra 5. But I've got the support of 15 MPs, but it will be 16 if I give you the name of the other one. And we've got 2 former Secretary of State. We've got the Right Honourable Suella Braverman and Right Honourable Robert Jenrick as well. I know the public care about this passionately. We've seen it constantly in the media, and by the end of March alone, we've had 5,000 people cross the English Channel on small boats illegally, and we know what risks are involved with this, with the people traffickers and risk to life as well. And it's the highest level on record for the time period. And I feel, as I said, that my constituents, other constituents across the country, who are struggling on a daily basis to get GP appointments, etc. I'd like a true, open and frank debate from both sides where, we've got challenges from cross-party, where we can also look on the knock-on effect of local government, because, let's face it, they've got a big part to play in this as well, local government in housing people and in the hotels, etc. So, and the knock-on effect on the community. So I hope you will consider my application.
Okay, thank you. The first thing, obviously, to say is that in terms of the number of speakers, you're quite right to say you've got the number of speakers that we would normally request for a chamber debate. Obviously, this is very heavily weighted towards the government
Yes.
side, as opposed to being in a more even split, particularly amongst, if I may say so, other opposition parties.
Yes.
I think your application would benefit from having people that would participate in that debate.
Yes, I completely agree, Chairman, and I think that given the subject, quite often, opposition MPs they take a different approach, but I would like to see them take part in the debate because I think we need a robust debate on this.
The second issue is the title you've put.
Yes.
It needs to be a more neutral title for
Okay.
us to table. The clerks will obviously give you help and advice.
Yes, that'd be very good.
Okay. Any other questions?
I was just going to say, Chair, that when you alter the title, it might persuade some opposition members to sign it, because the title, if you forgive me, the title does express a view.
Yes.
So if it's more neutral, more people might feel able to participate, and you can still have exactly the same debate.
Yes, that makes sense. So even if we move the word true, is that what you're saying? So if it's like the cost of, or are you thinking a bit more?
Personally, I would just call it illegal immigration.
Okay, I'm happy.
But that's up to you.
I'm happy with something like that. I just want to get this robust debate cross-party.
Along the same lines, I just wanted to ask whether or not you had actually asked any Labour, as the main opposition party, MPs to sign the application, and whether they felt that they, for whatever reason, they didn't want to, or have you?
No, I'll be honest with you. I haven't done one of these for a long time, having been a government minister and government whip. So I grabbed people in the voting lobby, if I'm honest with you. Okay. So I probably
Find too many Labour members.
No, exactly. So because I haven't done one for a while, having government positions, I'll happily approach them.
Okay. The final thing from me is that obviously there's a long queue for chamber time. If you wanted a debate in Westminster Hall, we can offer one. The earliest date we've got is the 2nd of May in Westminster Hall. If that's offered to you, would you accept that?
The only thing is I couldn't do Thursdays. I've got a child who goes to school in London and Yorkshire, so I need to get him back up for school in Yorkshire. I'd rather not miss a day from school. So ideally, any other time of Westminster Hall, if that's possible.
What would be the answering department?
It crosses over, doesn't it, the Home Office and local government. So I think either, really. Probably the Home Office predominantly.
Which potentially could allow you to have a Tuesday debate in Westminster Hall on Tuesday the 7th of May if it was the Home Office answering.
That'd be perfect.
All right, lovely. Thank you very much. The clerks will be in touch.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you.
And finally, on our non-committee applicants, Chris, come forward.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee. So I'm here today to seek an application in the Commons on a very important debate given the context of what's happening in Gaza, between Israel and Gaza just now. A little bit of background to this. I've actually sat on the Committee for Arms Export Controls for the last 7 years before it came to an end in December. And what I did seek before I came to see you today was to try and find a way to reconvene it so the 4 chairs of the committees could help draw that together. I wrote to Liam Byrne, who's the chair of the Bays Committee, to seek that, and he came back to me and said that wouldn't be appropriate any longer, it would need to be a debate. So then part of putting this application to debate here, I got all 4 chairs of the committees that would have been directly involved in the Committee for Arms Export Control, along with 33 others. The reason for the debate is very clear, and there's an urgent need to scrutinise UK arms export licences to Israel. Given the International Court of Justice ruling that there's a plausible risk of genocide by Israel, the UK risks breaching both the Genocide Convention and the Arms Trade Treaty should it continue to export arms. In addition, court papers have shown that legal advisers to the SCDO were unable to conclude that Israel was in compliance with international humanitarian law in its bombardment of Gaza, with an internal assessment unit stating, and I quote, "the volume of strikes, total death toll as proportion to those who are children raise serious concerns." Furthermore, on a leaked recording received by The Observer, The chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, who has her name to this application, has stated that the UK government has received legal advice from its lawyers that Israel has breached international humanitarian law in Gaza. And the decision not to suspend nor stop granting export licences to Israel was due to be kept under careful review. However, that policy has not changed since the ICJ ruling. So given the significant change of revelations about SCDO's internal advice, those responsible within the UK government must be held accountable on the UK's complicity in Israel's military action. I've since also written to the Attorney General to seek legal advice, and I had the support of over 70 parliamentarians, both from the House of Commons and House of Lords, and so far not had any advice. And what has been put in the public domain by the UK government is that they don't publish legal advice, but that's not strictly true. We have had precedents for that before. So I think this is a broad range, well-supported debate. I think it will bring in the opportunity to scrutinise where we are. It's a failure partly that we don't have a proper committee on Committee of Arms Exports Control that we once had. And we did fight and fail to have a separate committee set up. However, that's been taken into the SCDO.
Thank you for your presentation. Obviously, the first thing which applies to the other applications that we've heard is that there's only one government side representative on your list. Whilst it's well supported, it's clearly our requirement to get a balanced debate between the two sides of the argument. And I wonder what approaches you've made to government side MPs to sign the application.
So I've made a number of approaches. There's several issues with it. First issue is most people don't know much about arms export control. So lots of people are interested to come along to debate, but they're not willing to sign to something they don't really know much about. It's quite technical, quite legalistic. So that's been an issue. The second side, of course, is the UK government policy at the moment not to publish legal advice. And given there's a general election in place, there's quite a lot of Conservatives said to me privately, we will be there, but we can't sign for it just now. But I think the most important point is those who do know how arms export control works, all chairs of the committees who were previously involved have signed this or submitted a letter to confirm that they would like to be part of it. So I do expect more Conservative MPs to be there. But at this point, because of the technical legal side of it, people are a bit restrained about it.
Okay. Any other questions?
I totally take on board what you're saying. I think we can understand what some of the government MPs would have said to you, and maybe colleagues here from the government side may wish to say something to add to this too. But I just wondered if I could, if you don't mind, kind of offer a word of advice around asking them to sign, and that would be to kind of, I don't know, emphasise the point that it is a debate and that they don't have to necessarily be in agreement with what you're putting forward, because of course if we don't have people with an opposing view to what you've laid out, then there isn't a debate.
I mean, I made that very clear. In fact, I specifically focused on Israel to make sure this was a debate specifically around this rather than the broader debate about arms export control, which really loses lots of people, including myself, after 7 years on the committee. So I have made that case, and I mean, I could go and pursue again, but I think the timeliness of this is now. So I could be waiting another 3 or 4 weeks before I can come back with you with names. And at the moment, we're losing 700 people a day, 700 people a week in Gaza, and I really think the time is to bring this forward as soon as possible.
I don't disagree with you. What I would say is that we're normally looking for 4 signatures. You have 1, so if you could secure maybe 3 more, that should should suffice. I think I'm fair to say, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone else? No?
Can I just come back on that, please, if you don't mind? Last year, I mean, I've only ever put in for one backbench business debate before. I only had 1 signature on the Conservative side last year for the backbench business. It was on human rights in Gaza. It turned out we had a full half-hour debate. So people did turn up, but again, for the same reasons, people are a bit reluctant putting their names at the beginning, particularly if it's on a Thursday. Sometimes people like to have the flexibility. So I'm pretty confident we'll have more than 1 from the Conservative benches that is likely to be there. But I'm happy to take any signatures this afternoon if anybody's prepared to offer them. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris. And obviously the clerks will be in touch with you.
Thank you very much.
We now move to our 2 committee members who've got applications. And the first is Kate Osborne. Kate.
questions lined up for the next one.
I'm just going to shout resign at Kate.
Just for the sake of obviously everyone who's observing our proceedings, Kate is a member of the committee and will take no part in the deliberations in private on allocation of time or approval of the actual request. So over to you, Kate, to present your case.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you to the committee for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to say at the very beginning, my pitch, if you like, is for the Chamber because I'm aware that there is a space that hasn't been allocated for this particular week. The week in question is next week commencing the 22nd of April. So I think it kind of is fairly obvious that if I can't secure it in that week, then there's little point in going ahead. Lesbian Visibility Week is towards the last week of April every year. It's been going for some years. It's been going in the UK. I think it's since around 2008. I've left my notes over there, apologies. And this is part of a week of activity in and around Parliament and across the UK. I'm also hosting an event on the Monday evening in Parliament to celebrate Lesbian Visibility Week. And it's really an acknowledgement and a celebration of the achievements and the struggles of lesbian and gay women, to reflect on how they are treated within the LGBT community and basically in everyday life. You can see from the application I've got signatures from all sides. I could have got more signatures. The event that I'm hosting, I believe, will be very well attended. I've had lots of positive response. So I hope that you can support my application. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take questions, obviously.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate. So the one question I have to ask, if we are able to allocate you the 25th of April, would you accept it?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Questions for colleagues? No? Wow, you've got off very lightly then. Well done.
Did. Thank you very much.
And finally, Patricia Gibson.
Is this where we pile in now?
And Patricia, you've got your application is on the PHSO report on the women's state pension age.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I brought this debate forward after the publication of the findings of the much anticipated report from the Public Health Service Ombudsman. And thank you, Chair and Committee, for allowing me to present this debate. You'll be aware that I won't rehearse the arguments about the WASPI situation. I think we're all quite well versed on that. But I think the situation now moves to where we go, and it has been a cause of real frustration and, I have to say, anger among the women affected that when the publication of the report was made, there was no commitment by either the current Conservative government or indeed the expected incoming Labour government to commit even to the principle of compensation. Now, we're not even talking numbers at this point. We're talking about accepting the findings of the report and how we move on from there. And I think the number of MPs that have sponsored this debate is a testament to the fact that there are very, very strongly held views on this from right across the House, from every political party. And there's 58 signatures on the application, but in actual fact, I've recently received another 2 expressions of interest from 2 different political parties. So there's actually 60 signatures, and this reflects, I think, that the House needs to. The House needs to do what has been recommended in the report, which is, and I quote, to act swiftly and make sure a compensation scheme is established. And we think this will provide women with the quickest remedy. and it criticised, of course, the DWP because it will not take steps to put things right, and refuses to comply. Its refusal to comply is, and I quote, unacceptable. So I think that this is an issue that the House has to debate. We cannot allow it to be the case that WASPI women have won the battle but don't get the spoils of war, if you like. Now, there'll be different views across the House as to what that compensation might look like, and that's all part of the debate. But I think the principle for compensation has to be established. It has to be established quickly, because the longer this report goes unanswered, the more despair is setting in. And I would remind the committee that since the campaign for pension justice began, 270,000 of the 3.8 million WASPI women affected have died, and every day more and more of them are dying without seeing justice. And we have a situation, perhaps it's a sign of the times, but we have a situation where we've seen the infected blood scandal, and we've seen the injustice with the post office, and I think it's starting to feel to a lot of our constituents that the little guy never wins, and not even doesn't win, doesn't get heard. And I think it's our duty as parliamentarians to make sure that we listen to and voice the concerns of our constituents, and we can respond. Members will be free to respond to this report and how we move forward in different ways, and that's why, Chair, I have put in a votable motion, because what we're trying to establish is the principle of compensation. Because once the House agrees that the compensation should be coming forward, we can perhaps then reflect on what that should look like. But I think to not even go as far as accepting the principle is a real dereliction of duty on the House of Commons, and I think a lot of MPs from across the House are unhappy with that.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. This is clearly a very well supported application, as you said, on a cross-party basis. So there's no question about the numbers. The only issue would be having a debate how many people would get more than about a minute to speak in it. But that's another separate issue, I suppose. Questions from colleagues? No.
I would say, Chair, that you've made a very important point about how long people would get to speak. That perhaps is an argument for a full afternoon in the chamber, but I shall leave that to the committee's consideration. I know that chamber time is very hard pressed, and I know that you're booked up for the next few weeks, but I would hope that the committee would accommodate the strength of the application and the importance of it.
Yeah,
from
my perspective, given the number of people, if all these people did turn up, there'd be some very frustrated people that wouldn't even get the chance to speak, I suspect, in the debate. Kevin?
And understand, I think it's for Ms Gibson to make the point, but that there was a previous debate in Westminster Hall that was actually fairly full, 3 hours, that was fairly oversubscribed, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and I think because of the nature of this debate, a lot of constituents will be asking their MPs to attend, which will itself drive up numbers on the day.
I mean, obviously, what we can do is obviously approve this and add it to the list and to see when time becomes available in the chamber. And as you quite rightly will understand, on Thursdays the time gets squeezed anyway. So very rarely if you got half a day, it'd be almost impossible to get 3 hours debate anyway. So actually having a debate on a topic like this for the whole of a Thursday afternoon might be appropriate, that the committee might consider in a bit later on in May, I would suspect. All right, thank you very much. That brings our public proceedings to an end. Order, and we now go into private session.
The proceeding has ended.